Hi, I'm Amanda. This is my show, Drinks and Chisme. This is my sister Melody, and she's my co-host for the day. Say hi.
Hi.
Vocally, there you go. We are about 3 years apart. I'm the older one, but I look the younger one.
Oh yeah.
She nodded. She said yes. Anyways, we are from Stockton, California, and in this area, just about anybody knows somebody who knows about this story that we're going to cover today. Um, Let me first start by saying that on this show, I plan on doing many different topics. But with us being gigantic true crime fans, not fans, but followers, we wanted to be sure that we put kind of a spotlight on this case because with all the podcasts that we listen to, all the YouTubers that we watch that cover cases, we have not come across this one very often. I think My Favorite Murder did one podcast on them, and I think there's another podcast on them. And I don't know about YouTube videos. She's more of the YouTube person. But yeah, I have not found very many podcasts about these people.
Yeah.
So who we're going to be talking about, Melody, why don't you introduce who we're talking about today?
Okay, so today we're going to be talking about the speed freak killers. And they were two men named Wesley Shermantine and also Lauren Herzog. And they were born in Linden, California, which isn't too far from where we're from.
Yeah, it's just probably about 10 minutes east of where we're at, actually. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we're basically like attached to Linden. It's more of a countryside area in comparison to Stockton, which Stockton is actually surrounded by a lot of more countryside areas. So Linden is just one of those that falls into that that category.
Yeah, so there isn't much known about Lauren. Um, More so about him was just kind of how he was more submissive, quiet, and he kind of took the back seat in a lot of his interactions in high school. But let's talk about Wesley Shermantine for a moment. So Wesley came from a family of five. He had his mother and his father, and also two sisters, an older sister named Barbara and a younger sister named Dolly. So he was the middle child. It was said that his family was about higher middle class, and they also were known to kind of spoil their kids. They would give them pretty much anything they wanted, and a lot of times they were able to do a lot of different things that they wanted to do. Like, for instance, Wesley's father used to always take Wesley and Lauren hunting and also fishing.
I know, like I know they were a very aggressive family.
Yeah.
They weren't very nice people, and they had a lot of, I don't want to say enemies, but a lot of people who probably did not like them very much.
Yeah, they were said, sorry, my chair is making noise, but they were said to have been kind of an aggressive family, and it was quoted as saying on one documentary that I was able to find on them, it was called Born to Kill, but it was quoted on there as saying that their family was the type of people that if you had a feud with them, you kind of just didn't want to have a feud with them.
Yeah.
You know, they were known for being aggressive. In particular, the mother was known for being very domineering and mean.
Would you say abusive?
Abusive as well, yes. Dolly was actually quoted as saying that she witnessed her mother on multiple occasions break one of those industrial brooms.
And Dolly is the youngest sister, correct?
Yeah, Dolly's the youngest sister. She said that she witnessed her mother break this broom on her older sister Barbara's back on multiple occasions. Another thing that was said was that their mother and also their father would shoot a gun at Wes's feet whenever he did something bad. So if he was getting into any kind of trouble, they would shoot a gun at his feet and make him dance around as his punishment. You know, which can't be healthy for any person growing up.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah. Another thing too was that, like Amanda said, this family was known to have feuds with other people, and it wasn't just small bickering feuds. Sherman Time's dad, he was a house builder, so he was pretty much a construction worker, but I guess he would design these houses. I'm not exactly sure about what his actual job was, but I know he had a hand in building homes.
Mm-hmm.
And on one occasion, a man had his home built by their father, and because this man didn't pay the father the money that he owed him, the mother actually went and bulldozed his house while he was sleeping because he didn't pay the bill. I mean, it wasn't healthy. It wasn't.
Oh, no. I mean,
Actions.
yeah. I mean, if that's how she acts with people that she doesn't know as well, it's obvious that that's how she would also treat her family.
Yeah. So even though the parents would spoil their kids, there was a really dark side to living with them. There was a troubling and possibly, depending on where you lie in the whole, nurture and nature debate on killers, that might have played into why Wesley became the person that he became.
Yeah, I mean, from the addiction perspective to even being a abusive person himself, it would definitely, show that those are traits that he could have picked up from watching his mom.
Yeah, and one of the things to know is in the documentary Born to Kill, there is a forensic psychologist and other people talking in there saying about how that kind of behavior that the mother exhibited and also later that you'll see Wesley exhibit was kind of centered around this narcissistic view of I have a right to react this way because you wronged me. Mm-hmm. And you'll see later on there's going to be times where Wesley should have been charged and he kind of flew under the radar or wasn't charged, and it's kind of like he was emboldened by that to continue doing what he did.
Yeah.
Wesley and Lauren are considered thrill killers.
Yeah.
They kill because they enjoy the excitement that comes from it. They enjoy the hunt. Yeah. And because they were able to get away with what they did for so long, their spree lasted, or I don't want to say spree, but their killing, time frame lasted from 1984 all the way to 1999.
When they were eventually arrested, yeah.
Yeah, when they were eventually arrested. And, I mean, they killed quite a bit of people. Authorities say that it could be upward of 20 people. Not all confirmed, but they say that's a possibility. Where Wesley himself is quoted as saying there's possibly about 72 to 125 victims.
Yeah. I mean, Wesley would openly tell people in his friends and his family that he has had to make people disappear. So the reason why they were called the speed freak killers is that they were addicts. They like to do meth on a regular basis. And I'm not saying that meth is necessarily why they were murderers, but I will say that when you do drugs, when you drink or anything like that, your inhibitions are lowered. And so I think it just allowed them to be who they were truly meant to be, or who they truly were. So yeah, but they ended up earning the name as speed freak killers.
Yeah, and the drugs definitely could have helped with bringing that, internal darkness that they did have, the crimes that they were committing, and some of the victims, though not confirmed, but possibly are pretty violent crimes. You would think that somebody who had, maybe a healthy upbringing and also just healthy tendencies to release some of the issues they went through wouldn't commit such crimes as these were.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to talk about like some of the victims, what they went through or what, but some of them were pretty horrible deaths.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean nothing about this everything about it was personal. Every killing that they did, it was all personal killings. It was beatings, it was stuff along that line. So it was stuff that they needed to be face to face for. And most of their victims, or at least some of their victims, they knew on a personal level. They were either friends with, or they saw them regularly, and they knew who they were, and yet they still did this crime to them.
And
Um,
honestly, too, I mean, you'll see their methods of killing, their motive, their MO is kind of all over the place, and they're kind of described as being killers who didn't have a particular MO, but more so we're trying to figure out which was the most fun and exciting way to kill their victims.
yeah.
And
So Chevy is a 16-year-old girl. She was a student at Franklin High School here in Stockton. So she was a Stockton resident. She was actually Sherman Tynes' girlfriend. He was 19 at the time. This was all in 1985. One of the school mornings that she was there, she told her friend that she was ditching class so she can go hang out with Sherman Tyne. They were going to drive up to San Andreas so they can go to her family's cabin there, and just hang out, get high, stuff like that. But
have
huh?
fun. I said what young kids do, have fun.
Yeah. However, she never showed up again. The following day, Sherman Tyne actually showed up to her family's house, and they asked him like where she was, and he said, I don't know, I have no idea. And that's when he kind of became suspect number one for her disappearance.
Yeah, and I know that because he was looked at as the prime suspect, they did go and check his cabin, and that's where they did find some trace evidence, blood evidence in his cabin. That I know during that time they were just able to see that it was a blood type of a negative blood type.
Just like
Um,
Chevy Willer.
yeah, and the only downside was during that time, obviously DNA testing wasn't as advanced as it is now, so they weren't able to definitively say that that blood belonged to Chevy. Um, so it was unfortunate, but that crime kind of took the back burner at that point because there was nowhere else that they could really go, and I believe the investigators at that time really did think that Sherman Time had a hand at her disappearance and possible murder. They didn't know she was murdered at the time, but you know, it kind of looked like something very nefarious was going on.
Yeah. And also in 85, there was Robin Armtrout. She was a 24-year-old woman, and she was last seen getting into a red truck, with a gentleman and I use that loosely, a gentleman who looked a lot like Lauren Herzog. Lauren Herzog has a very particular look. He's very tall, very skinny. I know for a fact he's over 6 foot. I don't recall exactly how tall, but I want to say about 6'2". And he's also very skinny, very strong features in his face, very strong nose, blonde hair, like dirty blonde hair. He's not very hard to know and remember his face. Um,
Would you say like average looking, or
I
would
would
you
say he was an average looking male. And I mean, I'm not saying that, every like dirty blonde or whatever, is you can pinpoint them and say they all look the same. No, but he's a very particular looking guy.
okay,
Um,
so you could pick them out in a crowd?
yeah,
That's kind of what you're saying.
yeah,
Okay.
where I feel like Wesley would kind of more fit into the background. Herzog is just he has a very particular look to him, and I feel like he stands out a lot more feature wise. But witnesses say that the person who was driving the truck looked a lot like Lauren. Cynthia Enos, she is Robin Armtrout's sister. She had stated that she knew that Lauren and Robin were going on a date. And so her last known person that she knew he was going to be with was Lauren Herzog.
Yeah. So I want to ask too, what do you think about how prior to her saying that they went on a date, I know when I was looking into some more information with this case, I also seen that before Cynthia said anything, that Lauren was trying to deny even knowing Robin.
Yeah.
But then after Cynthia came out with that information about knowing that they were going on a date, that's when he said, "Oh, yeah, I might have."
Yeah.
You know,
but
I remember.
Recall.
He didn't straight up say.
And then he also says though that he doesn't recall Wesley killing her.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know Wesley wasn't officially charged for Robin's death, right?
No, but Lauren was.
Yeah, Lauren was the only one charged in her death.
Yeah.
So, and I think that's something important, like something really important to remember, because I think sometimes Lauren gets casted in this light. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but he gets casted in this light of being a simple follower, that he was just there to try to impress Wes, and that he was kind of forced to do this stuff. But
yeah, and the way that I more so read it was that like he was like the bait, you know, he was more approachable and he would get people to come up to him better than Wesley was, because Wesley was more intimidating, mostly because everybody knew about Wesley and his family history.
Yeah.
So, and so Lauren was kind of the bait, and you know that's what they try to pass off, but I don't feel like that's the case. I don't think Lauren is more innocent than Wesley. I don't think he was just a simple follower. I believe that he definitely played a part in that, and I honestly believe that he probably had his own list of people that he might have murdered, whether Wesley was there or not. Yeah. Mostly because of stuff that we will talk about later.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I found kind of interesting with this case is this constant portrayal of Wesley being
the bad guy,
the bully, the monster.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and unfortunately, we don't have information about Lauren and his upbringing and how he was. A lot of the information is just pretty much that he was kind of Wesley's little follower. And yeah. I think in the case with these murders going on, he kind of took that role again. And even though I know a lot of like authorities and everybody kind of can see that maybe he did have more of a hand in it, especially later on when we discuss kind of what happened with Lauren in the future.
And know that.
But at the end of the day, sometimes he's still casted as this.
Yeah.
Submissive.
Just to end Robin's portion of this, she was found. I'm not sure of the timeline of how long later. I know that they found her shortly after she disappeared, after this date. And the coroner did announce that she was raped and she was stabbed 46 times. Which, you know, like I said earlier, very up close, very personal murders. You know, these aren't one, you know, they're not just going around shooting at people who are facing away from them. You know, they're killing people that they know, that they're going on dates with, that they are friends with, you know, and they're doing it very up close and personal.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's I mean, that death alone is kind of telling of the person that Lauren can be, because 46 stab wounds, that's a lot of energy, that's a lot of hostility in the killing.
I mean, to rape someone alone and then you add on top of that 46 stabs. Yeah, definitely. And that would be a very tiring thing to do, you know. But if it's coming from a place where he might be high, you know, but also where he is just very aggressive. Maybe Robin turned him down. Maybe, you know, who knows what happened between them. The only person who would know is Lauren, you know. But it's like he handled it in a way that it was just very violent, very aggressive. And that's why I say I do feel like maybe Lauren was more than just a follower and probably even did this on his own sometimes.
Yeah, and I agree on that. Yeah.
And that, I mean, this is just speculation, so I don't want anybody to be upset about it, but it's like that, you know, when you're reading about it, I refuse to feel like Lauren was just this follower who had nothing, no one, what, you know, whatever. I don't want to see him as that person, because whether or not he was a follower or whether or not he did do this on his own too, either way, he assisted in these murders.
Yeah, he murdered.
There's no innocent person here.
Yes, absolutely, and I agree, and so that's something that's important to remember going on and going forward with this case, and also remembering, because Lauren is the one that spilled everything in a way too that made it look like he was not as much of a monster as Wes was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's important to remember that, because it's kind of like this man knew what he was doing was bad. He was trying to hide his crimes, and he went straight for throwing Wes under the bus.
Absolutely.
And it's kind of like he knew exactly what he was doing the entire time.
Yeah.
And I think that's just
some kind of narrative.
Yeah, and it definitely shows you that he wasn't some submissive, maybe kind of not thinking through the whole thing and just doing what Wesley said, you know. And I think that's something that's really, really big, and it stands out in terms of what it makes Lauren look like too in this case.
So let's talk about Cindy Vanderheiden. She is, I don't want to say more important, but she is definitely a key player in all of this and everything that happened from 1998 and on. So leading to 1999 when there was when they were finally arrested.
Yeah, she was definitely the big case that kind of stopped these killers. She was the case that brought their killing pleasures to an end, basically.
Yeah. I would say in part of, I mean, I give a lot to her family. Her family was very determined to get this solved.
And I think that's something that's really, really, you know, good to highlight, is that, you know, whenever you have a victim, or, you know, if you're a family of a victim, advocating for them is very important. And it's, you know, it's the way to really make sure that your loved one gets the justice that they do deserve, because
gotta keep them on the forefront of everybody's mind.
Yeah.
So Cindy was last leaving a bar called the Linden Inn, and the bar was actually owned by her family, by her father. It was a karaoke night. She ended up leaving with two of the bar's regulars. They just so happened to be Wesley Shermantine and Lauren Herzog.
So, again, I was watching this documentary about these two, and it said that the father actually was the one that found her car in the cemetery. In the cemetery.
So basically, they were leaving the bar to head to Glenville Cemetery, which is out like further out into like the country area of Linden. That way they can get high.
So when it came to Cindy, I know in the documentary I was watching, the father did say that Cindy had came to him the day that she went to the bar, and basically told him like, hey, do you want to come down with us for karaoke? Because I guess this bar had karaoke, um, karaoke night essentially, and yeah, and so he had told her no because he did have an early day the next day. You know, he told her just go have your fun, and so she went off to go and enjoy herself. The father said the next day when he woke up, he seen that her car was not in the parking space in front of their house. So he kind of just assumed that maybe she headed off to work because he knew that she also had to work early that morning too. But he said that later on, when he was driving to work himself, he came across her car in the cemetery. Um, he said it was odd, so he got off and he went to go look at her car, and he seen that her stuff, like her purse and her personal items, were left in the car. Um, Basically, like nobody even touched it. And so he kind of started getting a little bit nervous. He was kind of like, okay, what's going on? So instead of going to work, he turned back around and headed home and told his wife, like, hey, you know, have you seen Lauren? And that's when he found out that his wife hadn't seen her either. And that's when they decided to notify the police. So the investigation, the actual search, started 2 days after her disappearance, after she went missing, and it was 350 volunteers that came out to help in this search. So it just shows you how much this family seeked help and also were given the help that they were looking for.
I feel like it also touches on Linden. It is a very tiny community. I mean, there's probably no more than 3,000 people that live there. I think it's bigger now than it was then. It was a lot smaller then. There's a lot more really nice like houses and stuff out there now. But I know before it was, I mean, pretty desolate.
Yeah, it was known as a rural, little city. It was very small. Everyone kind of knew each other, and I think that's also why Wes had the reputation. His family had the reputation that they had.
I mean, I wouldn't even call it a city. I would say it was more like a town.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, a town for sure. So
Yeah.
this investigation had, like I said before, 350 volunteers came out to search, but unfortunately, their efforts would go to no avail. It wasn't until, I believe, was it March 18th, right?
It was March 18th of 1999.
So March 18th, 1999, that's finally when Wesley Shermantine and Lauren Herzog would be arrested, because DNA from Shermantine's trunk came back matching Cindy's DNA profile. Now, they suspected these two, like you said before, yeah, because they knew that Cindy was last seen with them.
Yeah.
They just didn't have the evidence, but when they were finally able to find the evidence, that's when they brought them in.
Now, yeah, I mean, it is good and typical police work.
Yes.
You know, we'll find out a lot more about the way that everything was handled. I don't agree with all of it. I do feel like some of it was wrong, but some of it was right.
Yeah.
I will say in investigating Cindy's death and her disappearance, they did really, really well.
And honestly, you will see this a lot in many crimes where investigators, they do things very well, very textbook, very efficient. But you'll also see that there's moments where evidence and just paperwork too can be misplaced or mishandled, which is very unfortunate. But yeah. I do want to continue going on into when they were arrested.
Yeah, Shermantine ended up being tried in Santa Clara County.
Yeah.
Just due to how widely known and how much publicity his case got here in the San Joaquin County.
So going back to during the when they brought them in to the police department, Sherman Time actually said, "I had nothing to do with this. We didn't ever do anything." But it was Lauren who flat out said everything, and this is when he mentioned prior to Cindy and Chevy that there were other people that were killed by the two. Well,
where he just flat out admits involvement in Chevys.
Yeah.
Because before this, they weren't able to technically link him to Chevy, with the exception of her possible DNA that was similar to hers being found. They couldn't.
Yeah.
You know, and this is just that confirmation that they needed.
Yeah, because Lauren went out there and he snitched. He said everything, and that's when he mentioned that prior to even Chevy being killed, that there were two individuals named Paul and
Paul Kavanaugh. It's Paul Kavanaugh and Howard King.
Howard King.
But there was also Henry Howell too.
Yes. So they were murdered as well. But the thing is Lauren said that Sherman Time killed them himself. He said he had nothing to do with that killing. He said they had just went hunting, and they were coming back from hunting when they came across these individuals in their car, and that Sherman Time walked up to them and just shot them for no reason.
Yeah, this was out off of Highway 4, which is just east of Stockton, like heading towards Fairfield, Vacaville area.
Yeah. And now, like, the funny thing though is that, Lauren had his own shotgun, but he said that Sherman Time took his shotgun after using his and shot the other man as well. Now, take that how you want. It's probably not true.
We know how we feel about it.
Yeah. And sorry, allegedly, it's not true.
Yeah, we have to say allegedly.
Allegedly, that.
Allegedly, Lauren had nothing to do with it.
Yeah. But I mean, it's kind of, you'll see a lot of times when there's multiple weapons and there's multiple people being charged, it's very unlikely that one person took the other weapon and, committed the crime too. So Sherman Time and Lauren were actually both convicted for this crime. I believe.
Yeah, they were charged for Paul Kavanaugh and Howard King. That's who I found that those are two of the four counts. They were able to link Sherman Time officially to Kavanaugh, to King, as well as to Chevy Wheeler officially, and as you guys know, Cindy Vanderheiden. And those were his 4 counts of murder. While waiting for his sentencing and the penalty phase of his trial, he had admitted to, or he had said that he would disclose the location of Cindy's body if the family gave $10,000 to give to his 2 sons. The family refused, obviously. However, there was a bounty hunter by the name of Leonard Padilla from Sacramento, California, which is about 45 miles north of Stockton. And he said that he was going to offer up the money. However, no deal was officially made, and Lauren did not disclose any location. Wesley did not disclose any location at that point in time.
One thing in Lauren's confessions, I know he said, but I don't know if they were able to find anything, but supposedly he said that Sherman Time had killed a man in Utah. I heard that it was an unidentified man. I don't know if they ever really found out.
I don't know if they ever really looked into anything. I don't find anything outside of his confession on that.
Yeah, and then, Lauren has also been, quoted as saying that, Sherman Time would brag about how over the years he had committed upward to 24 murders
Yeah.
himself.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it kind of reminds me a little bit of, like, in terms of, like, the bragging, like killers and bragging, with, like,
I mean,
Otis
that's a common trait. It's a common trait.
Yeah, like Otis Toole and Henry Lucas, you
Well,
see
yeah,
a lot of
Henry Lucas.
times.
Yeah, Henry Lucas. I mean, he bragged about murders he didn't even commit.
Yeah.
That's a complete moron. I mean, he said he drove to Hawaii and committed a murder. So,
And that's what I'm saying. Like you'll see this a lot where there's this bragging going on, and at the same time though, I mean, a lot of this information is coming from Lauren.
Mm-hmm. And we already feel like is not a very reliable source for information. I mean, he knows what's going on. He knows what's happening. He's able to connect them, but by connecting Wesley, he's disconnecting himself from it.
Yeah, absolutely. He's making sure to cast himself in a light that doesn't look bad, so there's only so much that we can kind of...
By this point, they have families. They have wives and kids. You know? So, I mean, it could be something that they put on to kind of seem like, that they're okay, that they were obviously just a pawn in this evil manipulator's game, but we don't agree.
Yeah.
So anyways, Sherman Time ends up being given the death penalty. And he's offered a plea deal of basically they would take death penalty off of the table if he tells them where Cindy's body is. He refused. So I mean, he not only just refused, but he also is still vehemently denying his involvement in any of the crimes.
Yeah.
It's all Lauren. Lauren. Just like with Lauren, it's all Wesley.
Yeah. And that's one of the things is with Lauren, it's also really good to know that he also too wasn't saying where these bodies were.
No. And we find out more. I mean, he didn't want them to be discovered.
Yeah, you'll find out that he really did not want these to be discovered.
Yeah. Herzog was tried in October of 2001 on 3 counts of murder and accessory to murder in the case of Cindy Vanderheiden. He ended up being sentenced to 78 years in prison.
Yeah, but I know in 2004 he did appeal his conviction.
Yeah.
And in a very controversial ruling, the court ruled that his confession was coerced, and so he was given he decided to plead guilty to manslaughter and receive 14 years with 6 years of his sentence being served. And he finished off his, I believe he finished off the rest of the time that he was in prison for his crime, and he was released.
Do you have his release date?
I don't know his release date. Yeah. But I know he was released, but I know it was such a controversial thing that they said supposedly no like halfway home or like those homes that convicts will go to before they're actually released.
Yeah.
None of them wanted to take him.
Yeah.
So what they had to do was
I have his release date. So his release date was September 2010.
Okay, so in September 2010 he was released then.
Yeah.
And he was released to live in a trailer next to a prison. Do you remember what prison that was? I don't.
High Desert State Prison.
Okay, yeah, High Desert State Prison. So, so he was released under probation to live in a trailer next to that prison because nobody wanted to take them in to their halfway homes, their temporary housing for convicted felons
Yeah.
to even after they released.
Yeah.
But it would be this action that would kind of trigger the spiral into Lauren's kind of downfall.
Yeah. So Wesley found out about Lauren being released, and he was not happy about it. He was in prison serving for a crime that he swears up and down that Lauren did. And Lauren was just, free to do his own thing, even though, I mean, living on the prison grounds in a trailer for your probation is probably not the freest that you could ever be. It's freer than what Wesley had. So Wesley told Leonard Padilla that he will tell him where the bodies were. Leonard told Lauren this. And on, let me say, I don't know if I have his date.
2012, right?
Yeah, I think it was. So in January of 2012, Lauren Herzog was found hanging in the trailer on the prison grounds. He killed himself after finding out that Wesley was going to announce where the bodies were. And this is where me and Melody were discussing that does not say innocent to us. That does not say, hey, I'm just a pawn. That doesn't say I'm with stupid, I'm his stupid, That is saying that you don't want to face more time for something, but it's like he can't be retried for the same cases. So, what case? So he knew more. He knew there was going to be more bodies there than what they had already connected him to.
Yeah.
And so he killed himself because he didn't want to face any more prison time.
Yeah. And I think, just right now I just have the thought, like, it's probably a combination of not wanting to face more prison time because, as I learned from Amanda earlier today, he got stabbed while he was in prison. And
yeah,
so
not have a prison life.
Yeah. Yeah. Nobody's going to want to go back there, after, especially that happened.
Yeah. And I mean, he went from seeing life to only 14 years and being able to be out again.
Yeah.
You don't want to go back.
Yeah. And what I just thought about right now is he had a family. And I'm thinking now, too, that maybe he was scared to face his family after these bodies were discovered because they would probably show that he had a hand at all these crimes, that he played more of a part,
a bigger role.
That he was letting on, and that maybe his family I'm sure his family probably backed him, probably thought that he was, an innocent bystander.
And I mean, I don't want to speak for his family. No. But I do agree that, as a family, we oftentimes want to see the best in even the worst people in our family. So I mean, it's a possibility.
Yeah, and that's
But it's a possibility. Maybe he was trying to save face. Yeah. I think he was a big old stinking liar, and he didn't want to get caught.
Yeah. Honestly, I think that might be the biggest thing. He probably just didn't want to go back to prison. And I see that. He couldn't be tried for the same cases, but as you'll find out, there's multiple remains that they found of people who, they were never tried for. And I'm sure he was very scared of going back to prison.
Oh, I'm sure. Okay, so Sherman Tyne followed through this time. He was temporarily released from prison so that he can show them where these bodies were. But it turns out that in 2010, he actually wrote his sister Barbara some letters that detailed locations of where they could find bodies. She did give these to law enforcement, but I don't know if at the time they looked into it. Actually, no. Okay. So it turns out in 2010, Sherman Tyne was writing letters to his sister Barbara detailing locations where these bodies could be found. And after giving them to law enforcement, they went to go check this well that was on Flood Road in Linden, California. And in that well, they found two bodies. Kimberly Ann Billy, who was 19 and disappeared on December the 11th in 1984, and Joan Hobson, who was 16, who disappeared on August 29th of 1985. So these are two additional people that were found who we did not previously link to the Speed Freak killers, yet they knew exactly where they were buried. Also in that well, they found the remains of about how many other people, Melody?
I know in one of the wells, they found 3 people with the, I'm sorry, her name is slipping my mind, the 16-year-old.
Yeah, Joanne Hobson.
Yeah, her, Joanne Hobson, with, there was 3 adults, and they actually found a fetus as well, the remains of a fetus.
Someone was pregnant.
Yes, and they said later on, I believe it was, I want to say it was Lauren that said that, no, maybe it was Sherman time. I don't really want to discuss it because I don't know exactly which one said it of who, but essentially,
one of the 2 scumbags.
Huh?
I said one of the 2 scumbags.
Yes, yeah. But there was a woman who, you know what? I believe it was Lauren or Sherman time that said it about Lauren.
Yeah.
There was a woman that Lauren had brought who was a prostitute that was very, very pregnant. I'm assuming very close to giving birth. And, she was raped and she was murdered. And I guess because she was screaming so loud, they at first told her to be quiet, but they ended up, I believe they slit her throat. So
I actually never read up on that.
And so it goes to show just kind of how gruesome, these killers are. But yeah, in that well, that's what they found. They said that they found over 1,000 bones, and they attributed to 3 adults with, also the bones of a developing fetus, a well-developed fetus.
But all of them were technically never identified.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I also want to say, like they said, over 1,000 bones. I don't know.
I read it was like 300.
Maybe it was less. I don't know, but this, I'm going to be this quote I got from the documentary I watched.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But I'm not sure exactly, what is, set in stone or anything like that. Yeah. But they did say that, because for me, when I heard over 1,000 bones, I was like, wait, wouldn't there be a lot more bodies than maybe 3? But, I'm not sure.
Okay. As promised, Sherman did inform Leonard Padilla about the other site where they confined Cindy Vanderheiden. She was discovered on the property that the family used to own, along with the body of Chevy Wheeler. Sherman also told Leonard Padilla about a couple other wells, but nothing was ever found at those wells no other bodies were ever found at those wells to be connected to them. So maybe it was Sherman playing a game. Maybe. As we learned earlier, Herzog claimed that there was some coercion in his confession, and so he was able to get his appeal. However, it turns out that that's not the only ill things that the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Department did wrong. According to several family members, as well as an elected official, they felt that they were mishandling the cases, and that there was a lot of hampering in the cases for further victims. So this wasn't family of the victims who were found. These are family of the victims who wanted more answers, and they wanted to find out if they were involved in their missing families, case.
Yeah.
They wanted answers, and it turns out that Shermantine wrote a letter to Kathleen Galgiani, who was a senator back then. I don't know. I'm not up to date on my politics, even though I voted. Is she our senator right now? She's not, right?
I don't know.
She's not a senator right now.
I'm not a part of San Joaquin County anymore. I don't know.
No, it's the state of California.
Oh, Senator, yeah.
Is Galgiani a senator in California right now? I don't think she is.
Yeah, see,
But I could be wrong. Anyways, he wrote her a letter stating that he had other locations of bodies for other missing people that they had killed. The reason why he reached out to Galgiani specifically is that Galgiani's cousin went missing back in 81. And so this is probably something that is a little bit more near and dear to her heart. And maybe, she just followed up, but what?
I'm curious in this sense, because for me, these allegations, like, I do think there's something going on, but I don't understand, like, I guess sometimes you have a little more,
let's go a little bit more into it first. That way I can actually say what these allegations, like, kind of break it down.
Yeah.
So Galgiani, upon wanting to look further into these locations, and she was willing, to use taxpayer money to discover possibly more victims in these locations that Wesley gave her. She found out that several files of missing persons were missing. They were deleted. At the time, when asked about it, they just said that it was a mistake that happened. They were, they were deleted, and they don't know what, and that was it. They didn't provide very much information as far as that goes. And that's where the whole hampering of evidence comes into play, because here there are all of these missing people who they had records for, and they no longer have them. If that's not bad enough already, a mother of a missing person filed a lawsuit against the San Joaquin County Sheriff's Department, saying that they were hampering these files, as well as there was mishandling in the investigation of one of the dig sites. They claimed that a particular sheriff representative went out there and used a backhoe at the dig site and destroyed evidence that could possibly link to any of the missing files or the deleted missing persons files that were gone. I did not find any further information on whether or not that even went to court. I didn't find any further information on that, but I know that there was a lot of claims to it. And in 2018, the new sheriff-elect decided that he was going to reopen the case and try to find more so about these missing files, as well as trying to connect more missing people to possibly the bodies that were found in the wells.
And so that's where, like I was saying, I'm kind of getting confused with this whole this case as well, because I guess for me, I don't know why these sheriffs are mishandling this case. Like, was there some kind of like I don't want to say laziness, but maybe mishandling in the paperwork, so they deleted these.
Well, I mean, a lot of times in big cases like this, they want to close the case. That's the biggest thing. They want to close the case. They want everything wrapped up pretty with a bow.
Okay.
And as long as they had all these missing files, or as long as they had all these missing people that either knew the Herzog or Wesley, or knew that were seen with them or whatever, or maybe they lived the same lifestyle and ran in the same circles. They did not, I feel like they probably did not want any more links in the chain.
Yeah. And I with you just mentioning that, I just kind of thought, you see a lot of times in a lot of crimes that involve people who have these more troubled lives. They're considered higher risk um, individuals, and and sometimes you see that maybe their investigations, their disappearances, their deaths aren't taken as serious as people who live a contemporary, you know, untroubled life can
Mm-hmm.
be. And so I'm kind of wondering if maybe that, unfortunate misjustice or mishandling kind of played in with
Yeah.
these officials.
Yeah. And I mean, it could be nothing, it could be something.
Yeah.
It was just 2008 when they said that they were going to reopen the case. That was November. No. Well, yeah, it was probably November 2008 because I think that's when we would have elected our sheriff.
2018, you mean?
Oh, 2018. Yeah, sorry. And so, it's 2020. Stuff like this takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's nothing is, I mean, even see with the course of this whole case. It started in 1999 when they were arrested, and, it's still going on. So,
Yeah. Um,
we probably can't expect very much information very soon. But if there is any updates, we'll definitely come back and go over
yeah.
them.
Yeah, and it is good to know. There's not much information. It just happened last month, but I mean, this investigation isn't completely closed. There was a bone found that officials came out on television and said might be linked to the speed freak killers. They don't want to jump the gun because they
Mhm.
said they still need to check whether it's an animal bone or a human bone. But the fact that they came out in public and said that there's this possibility, I mean, it just
It
shows.
just shows that it's on the forefront.
Yeah, and this investigation isn't exactly closed yet. There's still room to see if there's any other victims, if there's any other, things that went on between these two, which I think is amazing. So hopefully more families can get some closure, some justice, and
And I
you
mean,
know,
most of the time, that's what everybody is looking for. They're looking for closure in these situations. I mean, everybody wants to know that they at least have their answers. They might not always get the why, but at least they got the who.
yeah, yeah. And unfortunately, Lauren Herzog took his life, so he won't be seeing justice. He won't be served justice anymore. But hopefully, we can do something in terms. I mean, Wesley Sherman Time is already on death row, but I think it I think it'd be good to close some of these cases and to figure out what happened, especially with the numbers being thrown out there of the potential victims between these two. You know, there
Yeah,
could
we've
be
seen
a lot.
a lot of cases that's how it tends to be. Is if you look up like different serial killers, you're always gonna get either a this many to this many or this many plus. You're not ever going to get a full count because, I mean, who's going to already admit to all of the other ones unless they're Henry Lee Lucas?
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, and that's one of the things too is like numbers can be thrown out there and then taken back. You see that happen a lot again with the
Mhm.
same people. Henry and Otis were doing that. They were playing that game of throwing names out there, throwing victims out there, and then taking back their statements.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hard to really get a hard number on just how many victims there are out there, especially when you have people who have been killing in such a big time frame.
Yeah.
Um,
It's a
with the
very
way that
broad time frame.
yeah, and with the way that they were killing, there has to be more than 4 confirmed victims. There has to be more out there. Their attacks, their crimes were violent. They were aggressive. You can tell that there was probably enjoyment in their crimes, and so to think that in the span of what 15 years they roughly 15 years. Yeah, it was 15 years, right?
Yeah.
In the span of
I don't
15
know. I'm not a
years,
mouther.
yeah, in the span of 15 years,
No,
they
you're fine.
only killed 4 people. Um,
Yeah.
you
No,
know,
there's absolutely no way.
yeah,
Especially
and
under the circumstances in which they always did their killings. You're gonna tell me that basically they got high 4 times in the 15 years, and that's when they decided to kill them? No.
there
I
has to be more.
absolutely believe that there is a chance that there's way more than what they're saying or
Yeah,
what they're charged for.
yeah, and
I mean,
trying to,
Wesley. I mean, technically, Wesley is saying that there's more out there.
yeah, yeah, which is funny because he goes back and forth between, I have nothing to do with this,
But
to,
also, here's the body.
yeah, and also too, I mean, it just shows that these allegations to the San Joaquin County Sheriff Office, they're very devastating because trying to close a case without really knowing what happened to all these victims, to really find out how many these people really did hurt and kill, you're closing the chances of there being
They're
justice.
closing the books on people getting their closure.
Yeah, and it's a big disservice to do, and it's something that I think is great that the new sheriff elect is trying to reverse and go back and fix some of the prior mistakes, especially because, and I mean, you see it because just last month they had this briefing, on TV about the potential of finding a possible victim of these two. So you can tell that there is some.
I mean, that must mean that they must have found it at one of the dig sites, right?
Yeah, they did find it at one of the dig sites. There's some, it's not just some random place and they're trying to throw it at them. So that's a good thing. It's a good sign to show that they are still looking into these two and the possibility of them, having other victims.
Yeah, no, definitely. I agree. Let me see. Fun fact, Melody. I was told that, well, okay. The fun fact really is that, the whole 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, where you try to connect one random
Some way, yeah, you're related.
Yeah. Well, we kind of have something similar with the Shermantines. It seems like almost everybody I talk to knows somebody that either, that hung out with the Shermantines.
Yes.
I mean, we know somebody that hung out with the Shermantines.
Do we? Who?
Yeah, one of our uncles.
Who?
Our uncle Jose.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah. Sandy actually told me, and my mom actually confirmed it today that they were friends, that he would go hang out with them. Yeah. So isn't that, I mean, I did try to reach out to him on Facebook and get some. I haven't talked to him in years. I talked to his son, but I don't talk to him very much. He was married into the family. But I never heard back, and I probably contacted him about a year ago about it. Yeah, and I never heard anything back from him. I don't know, is that just that he doesn't know how to work the Facebook? But yeah, never heard anything. He never read the message, so
he never read it.
No, so my thing is maybe he just doesn't know how to work the Facebook.
Yeah, possibly. And I mean, you see that happen, like when you're from places like Stockton, and Linden is really close. There's a lot of crossing over between, Stockton, Linden, Lodi, even Manteca, Lathrop. You see that there's going to be a lot of people that kind of know of this person, and I used to hang out with this person because these cities and towns are so close together.
Exactly, yeah, and they're, especially with how small a place like Linden is, they probably frequent somewhere like Stockton, or at least back then they would.
Yeah, and I mean, unfortunately, Stockton has a lot of areas that have,
higher crime rates.
Huh?
Oh, higher crime rates.
Well, yeah, higher crime rates, but it also has a demographic of a lot of drug, exchanges and stuff like that going on. And you know.
Yeah, no,
It
definitely.
seems, it seems like it's just a community that is gonna be kind of, you know, interacting with each other.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, Melody, thank you so much for being on my very first episode. I figured you would probably be the best person because if there's anybody that was raised to be into all the same weird shit that I am, it's you.
Yeah, pretty much.
So,
Yeah, I mean, true crime is something that we are definitely interested in. Like Amanda said earlier, you know, it's something that we tend to kind of engage in a lot in terms of the media stuff that we look into, like with her and podcast, me and you too. True crimes are kind of like some of the biggest things that, you know, kind of get our attention.
yeah,
And
and I mean, and it's mom's fault. You
yeah,
know,
yeah.
always watching IDTV every single day.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, you can call up my mom. I called up my mom too, and I was talking to her, you know, and I was like, yeah, me and Amanda are gonna do the, you know, this
Yeah, she
video.
asked about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, oh yeah, the ones from Linden. Like she already
Yeah.
knows.
Oh, everybody knows. Everybody here knows
Yeah,
about the speed freak killers, but it's something that I have hounded uh True Crime Garage to cover their case
yeah,
because they will not talk about them. You know, and like I said, My Favorite Murder did a very short because well, I don't know if you know the title of My Favorite Murder. There's two women. They each say their favorite part. They each give you one crime story or one story, and at the end they decide which one they liked more. And this just so happened to be one of their live little mini episodes and that
yeah,
they actually talked about them, and so it was a very short segment, and I
yeah,
feel like ours is far more detailed. But yeah, they kind of give a little bit of information on it, and I just felt like we needed to do something because this is a case that people in this area know so much about.
yeah,
And like I
yeah,
said, it's the 6 degrees of the speed freak killers. Somebody knows somebody that knows somebody.
yeah.
You know, that
And
was
also
related. Yeah.
another fun fact too. These two, Wesley Sherman-Time, and Lauren Herzog were
Yeah.
actually mentioned a couple times in Criminal
Oh,
Minds.
were they?
Yeah, they were mentioned in Criminal Minds very briefly, but you know
At
they
least
were
somebody knows about them.
yeah. So very briefly, but Criminal Minds did mention about their different MOs
Yeah.
and the fact that they were thrill seekers,
Yeah.
thrill killers, and so
Yeah.
their MO would switch up a lot in order to see if they had
What was the most thrilling?
what was the most exciting,
Mm-hmm.
fun way to kill someone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Well, I want to end this with a story that Andrew actually told me. Andrew, for everybody who does not know, is my fiance. And he told me the story a few years ago when he worked at a restoration place here that was originally in Livermore and then moved out here. There was a woman who worked there, and she said, "Oh yeah, what? I don't know how it came up, but basically she said, "Oh yeah, I know about the speed freak killers. They killed my friend. Her head was in her body was in the well, and her head was in the hills." Yeah, and that's basically just the way she said it. Very callous, very unemotional, like, hey, like, it's so sad they killed my friend. No, head in the hills, body in the well. Like, it was.
yeah. Do you
Yeah,
happen to know what her name was?
the friend, I don't think she gave you that information, right? Yeah, I don't think she told him a name. He was kind of weirded out from the whole situation.
The only reason
conversation ended there.
Yeah, the only reason I ask is because I can't remember if it was Cindy's friend or one of their victims' friends, supposedly is writing a book about the speed freak killers. And so that's why I was kind of like, oh, it would be interesting.
Oh, the coworker's name.
Huh? Yeah.
Oh, I don't even think he remembers. It was so long ago already.
Yeah. I mean, chances are small, but
yeah. But I mean, was she a well-written person? And she was not a well-written person, so.
Oh, okay. But yeah,
her being her are probably slim.
Okay. Well, there is talk about a potential book coming out.
I
about the
enjoyed
Speed
that.
Freak Killers, written by one of the victims' friends.
Okay. Well, Melody, like I said earlier, thank you so much for joining me on my very first episode. We've been doing this since 5 o'clock, and it's now 8 p.m. So I really gotta just stop looking at myself in the camera. You
Me
have
too.
a good night, Melody.
All
All right,
right.
bye.
Bye.
Well, thank you so much for going through that with me. Like I said, this is a case that I have just not seen covered very much, unfortunately, and I really wanted to share some information about it. So, if you guys liked it, please give me a thumbs up. If you guys hated it, please give me a thumbs down and tell me what I can fix. I know I am very new to this and I know it will have its glitches, but as time goes on, it will get better. So, please stick with us, please. Also, you can follow me on Instagram. I will enter my name here. Thank you so much. Have a great day.